Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the DMZ America podcast. It is Wednesday, December 18th, 2024, episode 185. I think could be 186, but I'm pretty sure it's 185. I am editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis coming to you from what's left of the thoughtful left, right? Holy crap.
You're not a very certain person today, Scott. You weren't sure about the day. You weren't sure about your political orientation.
And joining me is
editorial cartoonist Ted Rall, coming to you from what's left of the left. And by the way, that's the title of my new book, What's Left.
Oh, really?
It's not out yet.
It's called What's Left?
It's called, well, it's never mind the tagline across the top is never mind the Democrats. Here's what's left, right? So
so it's like so it's a Sex Pistols album.
It's like that, yeah, except not as entertaining or likely to sell as many copies.
Never mind. Oh God, I'll never forget. It changed my world. Do you remember the news magazine? I think, is it still on ABC 2020?
I believe it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. They had a thing of the music that's destroying the world, or like rocking the Western world. It was like this. It had to have been the exact same tone, tenor, and language they used when news stations did stories on Elvis.
Sure.
It's destroying America, and it comes on. And don't forget, this is
not that destroying America is a bad thing, but okay.
This is like 1977, 78. And they start playing the music, and it's like God Save the Queen, which sounded,
she ain't no human being.
It's so radical back then.
Potential H-bomb.
She made you a moron, and England screaming. And I'm watching this, and my mom is like, oh, isn't that just awful? I'm going, thank God, because up until that point we had disco.
Well, although, yeah, I mean, I think they're kind of from the same exact period, right? I mean, Never Mind the Bollocks comes out in 1977. Disco is kind of that year too, right? I mean,
right. Saturday Night Fever came out in 76, 77. You're right. And so you're just hearing all this, disco stuff, and some of it's fun. It's just dumb fun, which, I mean, holy shit, we can talk about the kids and their darn music nowadays, but we were listening to a couple of live contemporary music stations on the drive. We just came back from Southern Illinois, and oh my God, it's just like listening to this music is like, is every kid on Xanax? Because this music is so depressing versus songs like disco music, which was really upbeat and fun and stupid as hell, but still like fun. Like, life is great. We're young. We're having sex. And we're dancing. This is awesome. And now you have Billie Eilish, like bullshittery. I don't know what I'm doing. Billie Eilish is starting her tour, 5 shows.
Is it Eilish?
I don't know. I don't care.
I think it's Eilish. I don't know.
I mean, it's such dreadful, drivel, non-melodic, ugh.
Well, my biggest complaint look, here's the thing. I will say it again. This is the first time in human history that old people did not like young people's culture because it was so boring.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened ever before,
No, it's always like, oh my God. I mean, I can remember like my brother and my parents arguing whether or not to watch Elvis. That's how fucking old I am. Not Elvis, the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And just that music and that whole scene, the whole idea was liberation, and part of it was drugs, which turned out to be a bad idea, but also part of it was sex, which is a good idea. Well, but that's the thing. This generation now has significantly less sex than my generation.
Oh, I know. Well, and that's a whole show right there. And
have you tried it? Because it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it beats any electronic anything. We should. I mean, I remember when I first heard the Sex Pistols album. I was working at the high school radio station, and I was like, "Holy shit! What is this infernal racket?" And to me, it sounded like a bunch of rusty oil drums being pushed down the stairs of a housing project. And now I listen to it and I'm like, wow, it's so melodic. It's like,
I know. It's like it could be played on an elevator.
And a kiss.
Yeah.
I know what I want and I know how to get it. I want to destroy passers-by. You know, I mean, and in fairness to the Pistols, they saw this coming. If you ever listen to, it's kind of lost to the mists of time, their Great Rock and Roll Swindle album, the soundtrack to the great Sex Pistols movie. And it's sort of like when the Pistols were falling apart, and it's full spectrum Malcolm McLaren ridiculousness. But anyway, they have a whole section of a cappella versions of their songs.
Oh my God.
In 1979, right? So they kind of were self-aware. It's just like, it's like the Ramones. They always were like, I don't understand. We're just doing, like, basically we're influenced by the Ronettes and the Shondells and the Standells. You know, it's melodic, and everyone was like, the Ramones are scary, and it's like, no, but time has borne them out. They were right. That's melodic. It's really pretty melodic songs.
Well, and coming up on the show is that we're speaking about, well, not melodic, is where we've got kind of political potpourri as we're coming up at the end of the year. Ted and I are busy going Christmas shopping, you know, and by that I mean going online.
Well, I plan to do some Christmas shopping.
Do you go out? Do you actually go to brick and mortar?
I am. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. No question.
Well, you can see if you look at watching the video, you can see it says political pot puree. Oh, potpourri. Ted did a deep dive into the meaning of the word potpourri. Ted?
Well, yeah. It occurred to me while I was typing it into the banner here that pourri in French, you know, my first language, means rotten. And I was like, that's a strange name. It means like rotten pot.
Why would Johnny Pourri?
And yeah, Johnny Pourri, the famous pourrister of Paris. Anyway, it does in fact turn out. So according to the etymologists, not to be confused with the entomologists, it is a 17th or 18th century Spanish or French origin. In all cases, it does mean a mixture of stews. It's the turducken of its time. It's like basically random chicken, pork, beef, whatever is lying around in a slop bottle. It literally does mean rotten pot. And there's different. The Spanish think that it means rotten pot because the smell was not great of all of those different meats, disparate meats, meeting together and then cooking together. The French literally were gathering rotten meats, and they figure if we cook the shit out of it,
together
for a long time, 2-3 wrongs will make a right or something, and they'll all get together and cancel each other out. And I have to admit, I hate stew. I always have hated stew. My mom made a lot of it when I was a kid, and now I know why I hated stew. I'm right. Those are my French ancestors deep in my DNA, right? This is epigenetics talking. Like, Ted, we died in 1705 because of the same shit. Cut it out.
Because of your mom's shitty stew.
Yeah. Well, my mom, oh my God, you know, I learned my mom, I was always sick as a kid. And one of the reasons I had stomach pains all the time, like where it basically was like a knife twisting in my arm, in my stomach. I learned much too late that my mom was feeding us rotten food all the time. She basically would freeze food. And I only found this out as an adult. She thought that if she put food in the freezer, it's basically like, you know how like in you know, like how Siberians will dig up a woolly mammoth and they can eat it like out of the permafrost, keyword perma. She thought it was like that. Like once you put like a piece of potpourri in the freezer, that like it would stay there. Like, and I was like, but it's God. But I'm like, it's still rotting. It's just rotting slowly, right? I mean, it's only like 5 below zero in there. It's not, 100 below zero. It's not like locked in.
So was your mom a terrible cook?
She was awful. I mean, she
how's that? Okay,
it was like Mrs. Paul's fish sticks, like boiled.
Hold on here.
Boiled chicken. Yeah.
My mom was French. Your mom was French. Now the French,
100% French,
rightfully have this tremendous reputation for being
correct,
extraordinary chefs, the gastronomic geniuses on the planet. And if you go to Paris or anywhere in France, you can't find a bad meal. You have to work really hard.
It would be
find
tough,
a shitty meal. How did our mothers turn into such shitty chefs? Because my mother sounds like we had the same mom.
Oh yeah, no, my mom was lazy. She's just the only time that when I was very young, before she like went back to work, she did have a few like specialties. She made these cream puffs, these custard filled choux à la crème, which were like, oh, and also at this time of the year, this reminds me of this. She made the bûche de Noël, the Yule log, with a hazelnut sponge cake that you like roll up, and there's a hazelnut thing in the middle. And it was like, and then she even did the fork thing to make it look like like the bark of the tree because it's the Yule log. And
yeah. Oh my God,
so good. And then she just stopped making it. She's kind of like, fuck it, I'm checking out. So it's like. Yeah, no, I don't know how this
explains why she was so slender all her life, because she couldn't stand her own cooking.
You're not really wrong. That's what I used to always say about Ethiopians starving. It's like it's not that they're poor. The Ethiopian food sucks. Who would want to eat it?
Food. Love Ethiopian food.
That is like I would sooner vote Republican than eat Ethiopian food.
Really?
Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Well,
horrible.
This is why what makes us friends. It's amazing that we can still talk to each other, even though I eat spongy bread.
True, with your hands.
And Ted won't touch it.
The way God did not intend.
So the political potpourri, let me jump in here, and because it got me going before we started recording, and I think it's worth getting excited about again. Kamala Harris running for governor of California.
How do we know?
A shoo-in?
Is she running really?
It's some strong evidence that she would be by far the strongest candidate. They've already had,
does she want it?
5 or so. Well, that's where it comes down to, doesn't it? They have 5 or 6 announced candidates, lieutenant governor, and I would challenge anyone.
Where's Gavin? Wait, where's Gavin going?
Term limited out. He's done.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
I shan't miss him.
He was terrible. Look, I mean,
and I have my own personal grudge against him.
No, against him? Why him?
Well, don't forget that remember the little corrupt deal that he made with Dr. Pat over getting rid of certain person's lawsuit in the California Supreme Court.
What did he have to do with it, though?
Let's just say that he went over to the California Supreme Court and asked them to change their mind about supporting me unanimously.
This is news to Scott. I guess
we'll have another time.
Okay, this will come out in the book.
It's already written in the book, yeah.
Well, okay, but
the book has been written. It sits in the ether.
But it's not out.
And I'm looking at you, Gavin, and I'm looking at you, Austin. Don't do it. Don't run for higher office. You guys have achieved your level.
Every single time Newsom's name was mentioned as after Biden, when Biden dropped out, Newsom would be the logical choice for the party. I'm going, if I was a Republican, I would love to have run against him, because it was he's going to do to the United States what he did to California. California's a fucking basket case.
That's true. And also, I would not be terrified of him if we're the only 2 people in America who watched the Fox News Ron DeSantis versus Gavin Newsom debate. But, Ron DeSantis, maybe the least pleasant person in the world after like Hitler. Hitler, actually, that's probably unfair to Hitler. He had his charming moments. DeSantis, however, wiped the floor with Gavin Newsom. I mean, it was not pretty to see.
Newsom wasn't ready. That's what was so stunning, is that you and I, if I give a speech, I've been in a few debates, I've been on some panels, I do due diligence. And it was just shocking to me that Newsom showed up and thought, oh, okay, I guess I'm just going to wing it, whatever, whatevs. And it was just an unimportant debate between 2 large state governors. But that can be a defining moment for you.
Yeah, it sure can.
I mean, it's not like you're going to go on KKTL, the Valley's top talker.
Well, even so, you should be prepared.
You should be prepared and sober and ready. And he was, I can't speak to his sobriety, but I know that he was just terrible in that. So Kamala Harris, according to polls, is leading the pack. It's hers, is effectively, remember this, it's hers to turn down. Things seem to be handed.
I mean, look, this is she's Hillary Clinton in 2000, right? Got nothing to do. She's the lady politician. They're not going to let her run again for president. So,
contraire mon frère.
Oh,
the Democratic Party, there is definite and sincere and serious conversations that she could be the standard bearer in 28.
Oh my God. No, Scott, first of all,
she's leading in the polls right now.
Haven't we all suffered enough? Really?
Right now, she's leading in the polls.
Okay, she's not going to be the nominee though in 2020.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
And so there are better people, which is to say everyone. And but anyway, so she's got nothing to do. Basically, it's true. It'll be like Hillary Clinton. There was a very, I forget her name. There was a lady who was an upstate New York politician who was set to be the Democratic candidate for governor, who'd been working really hard, was like a huge advocate for public education, to be senator, right, in New York in 2000. They were like basically the Democratic Party were like, yeah, lady, hit the road, bitch. Like, we're putting in Hillary. And they put it, and they cleared the field for her.
You're right.
And they're going to do the same thing. They could do that if they want to. They can totally do that for Kamala. I mean, I don't see her doing it for one simple reason. I don't think she wants it. I think it involves being the governor of a state. It's not Delaware where you're just looking out for like the PO boxes. I mean, California is a real state, most populous state in the country, fourth or fifth largest economy in the world. They got a lot of problems, a lot to do. I mean, she's lazy. I don't think, I don't see it. I see her going the route of like president of Pepperdine University, something like that.
Oh, absolutely, because you don't have to work.
Trustee of the University of California.
I mean, for all of the bullshittery, and we're trying to have some people on who were like, have said, and I quote, she was the best candidate and ran a perfect campaign. I'm quoting directly some people, folks. Well, empirically, that's simply not true. It can't be true because we're not gearing up for the inauguration of President Harris.
Right. I love that. Like, I mean, I suppose it's possible to have two adversaries both conduct a perfect campaign, and then, one of them is going to lose, and that's just how it goes. That is not what happened here.
No.
And here's the thing. Donald Trump didn't run a perfect campaign, right? And she lost to him.
Far from it.
So by definition, hers was not perfect.
Right. So they're all saying that. So they're all fawning over her that she's this great candidate. Somehow she got screwed out of the election, which is not what happened. She convinced Ted. Think about the talent. Here's where her talent lies. Here's where Kamala Harris's talents lie. She convinced 7 million Democrats not to vote in 2020.
That is not true. It was more like 11.
Okay, but think about the talent it takes to convince 11 million people not to do something.
In the middle of one of the most, let's just say, talked about and elections in our lifetimes.
Exactly. So you and I love history, and I did stump you. I was kind of shocked, but let me listen to our listeners and our viewers real quick and say, okay, who does this remind you of? The loser of a fairly close election, closer than this one, actually, closer than 24, but the loser licks his wounds, obviously, because there haven't been too many women, goes back to his home state and runs 2 years later and runs for governor and loses. Now, who is it? Let's give him a few seconds to see. I'll give you a hint. His concession speech was, think of what you'll be missing. You won't have Dick Nixon to kick around anymore. Richard Nixon went back to California, ran for governor as sort of a placeholder. I think the presumption was he would run in 64. Then, of course, the assassination, he lost, as I mentioned. And then about a year later, Kennedy is assassinated, and no Republican in their right mind is going to win that election in 64. It's just not going to happen. So Barry
Nixon was not interested.
No, he stepped away. Barry Goldwater takes the nomination and gets his ass kicked by LBJ, and then Nixon comes back again in 68.
By the way, why do you think politically, why does someone agree to be a sacrificial lamb like that? Like, why does Bob Dole agree to run in 96? Why does Alton Parker run in 1904?
Alton Parker should have won.
Why does Charles Hughes
America would have been a better place. Not Alton Parker, because
you're thinking of Charles E. Hughes.
Yes, Charles Evans Hughes would have been a much better selection than Woodrow Wilson, who kept us out of war.
That's true.
Until he didn't.
For a few months.
Alton Parker ran against Teddy Roosevelt in 1904, an incredibly popular Teddy Roosevelt. Mm-hmm. You're right. I mean, he's a judge from upstate New York. I mean, what the fuck? Why not?
He knew he was going to lose. I mean,
yes, but you get campaign.
Maybe you think you're going to be Harry Truman, who was the Democratic Party was so sure he was going to lose that Truman political buttons and other ephemera are still very rare because they didn't bother to print any.
Not just that, but don't forget, Gallup stopped polling 10 days before the election because it's over.
This is done.
Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what it is, right? It's kind of like
that's what keeps.
It's sort of like it's like the condemned man staring at the phone and hoping against hope that the governor's going to call, right? I mean, that's what it is. It's because you never know. You never know.
Harry Truman, the 48 election was the worst thing that could have happened in politics because every fucking politician now thinks, well, the polls may show I'm a mile behind, but by gum, if I keep, I can come in and I can pull the biggest upset in electoral history if I just keep doing what I'm doing. No, just stop.
Although you never know. I mean, now the polls aren't even the polls, right? I mean, like now it turns out that we know from inside the Democratic Party that they knew that Kamala Harris was always behind the entire time, was never within spitting distance of Donald Trump in 2024. And they knew that from the internals. The Trump people knew it, and you could tell they were kind of like walking on sunshine like Katrina and the waves. And like and then like the truth comes out, but meanwhile all the polls are like too close to call, 7 battleground states, anything could happen.
Well, and it comes back to what I was
in the polls
mentioning earlier about there are still people, and we're going to try and get them on the show here to talk about how great a candidate Kamala Harris was. She was an abysmal candidate and ran a bad campaign because she was an abysmal candidate. I mean, it's not complicated, kids. This is how this came down.
All right, so let's talk about Kamala. Does she want to be governor? Because if she wants to be, she will be.
You bring up a really important point. You have to want it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sorry. You're still running a state of 50 million people. It's the most populous in the union. It's a diverse, dynamic state. And the fact that
Californians, having lived there, they really care about their politics too. They really do. In a way more so than, say, Ohioans.
Yeah. Well, they take it seriously more than New Yorkers. I mean, New Yorkers keep, electing people who don't live there,
Right.
Robert Kennedy, Hillary Clinton.
And we elect clowns like our current mayor.
Well, there's that, but that's rare. I mean, you're not clowns. You guys have people with personality. I mean, you do in New York City, but in California, I really believe a Republican who's not a Trumper, who's not a social conservative, could win very easily because the taxes are so onerous. They're looking for a more, the state for the first time since its founding in 1859. Think about that for a moment, is actually losing population. That's a first. And that's telling. Is it enough to hurt them? No. To have any kind of appreciable or tangible effect on people's lives? Not yet, but it will. Mm-hmm. I don't know that she could win. To be honest, I think they're looking.
Well, wait.
Let me ask you this, Ted.
That's insane. I mean, they have. Well, I guess they have ranked choice voting now in California, right? Yes. So the two top candidates, who will both be Democrats, because the state GOP is not a factor in California.
No, it's a MAGA controlled bullshit.
Well, it's also dead. It's so small. I mean, basically, California, a Republican cannot be the governor of California at present. It will not happen. I mean, God himself could run as a Republican candidate for governor. He will not win.
I disagree. I humbly disagree, because I think if the policies are correct, like I said, if they jettison the social agenda of the, nationalist Christian right and actually run as a moderate Republican, you could win. I think
it has happened. Okay, but anyway, right? The point is, more likely than not, you run an election. You have stage one, the two top candidates. She would be one of them with the backing of the state DNC and the state Democratic Committee. Then she would be running against some other Democrat. So the wild card is, who's number two?
Well, I would challenge you to look at
Austin Butner.
Your friend of mine.
Don't do it, Austin. I'm watching you. Don't do it.
The lieutenant governor, whose name nobody knows, she is very unknown in the state. There are some politicians who would come to the fore. Another mayor, perhaps, very much like Pete Wilson did, former mayor of San Diego, ran for governor, won 2 terms, then became a U.S. senator. I mean, there's a rich history of people, of mayors rising to the. Here's the question I ask you, and here's the question I ask our listeners, Ted. What has Kamala Harris ever run? What has she been the director of? I mean,
nothing.
I mean, even
she didn't run her. She didn't run. She's always been a DA. She didn't run her own private law firm. She didn't. She's never done that. I
guess you could say she ran the attorney general's office in the state. I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's not really a management
every indication
job.
She did not run it very well, or she didn't run it at all.
Well, and she can't run her campaign for shit.
No.
And the vice president's office was bleeding personnel. Nobody wanted to stay to work for her. So,
right. And that's huge too. That's another big negative, is that she can't keep staff, and it's in Sacramento, as you know. Sacramento's a company town. It's the state government. And the fact that she couldn't keep staff tells you all you need to know about what kind of person she is. But it's preposterous to think that, I don't know. Again, it smacks so much of Nixon in '62, and he lost by a lot.
Why did he lose?
How?
Why?
Because he didn't. Everybody and their brother knew this was a place he was just doing.
And Californians didn't want to be used, right?
Right. They wanted someone who was actually going to run the state, someone who wanted to be there. Pat Brown had already been was finishing up his first term as governor of California.
Excellent politician.
Pat Brown, the father of Jerry Brown, and so running against an incumbent who wants to win, against a guy who's clearly, like I said, just a placeholder while he runs for president again in '64. A rematch with Kennedy. That's what he was angling for, and that's clearly what she's angling for. She wants a high profile platform in which to launch a 2028 campaign. Nobody wants that. I mean, okay, let me walk that half a step back. Some of the people we're going to have on this podcast want it. Okay.
But okay. Let's look at 2028. I think Kamala's politics. I mean, I think she's dead as a politician. I think, you don't hear, no one's really internally in the Democratic Party thinking that lady was robbed. This isn't when you think about some of the great also rans in American history. I mean, I do think a lot of us would have liked to know, what President Adlai Stevenson would have been like. If he hadn't been running against the formidable Eisenhower, we might have gotten to find out. But he was a really smart, interesting, great liberal. It would have been. A lot of us would like to know what Al Smith would have been like. I think I would have liked to have known what Al Gore would have been like, especially in considering that he really prioritized the environment at a time when that was has been really important.
You do wonder how Al Gore would have managed 9/11.
Yeah. Would Al Gore have invaded Afghanistan and then Iraq? I doubt it. So, I mean, but the point is there's a lot of those what ifs.
Yeah.
I think maybe some people would like to have seen what Hillary Clinton could have done. I'm not one of them, but I think those people exist. No one is going to ever cry that Kamala Harris didn't get to be president. It's like, oh man, the Republic, if we'd had Kamala at the helm when the great space tsunami of 2026 hit America, then we would have fought off the nematodes from planet Claire. No.
One of the most telling conversations I had during the election was a friend of mine is a very high-rated or highly placed political operative in Illinois. I mean, he knows the Bidens, he knows the Obamas. He works at that level. And he called me out of the blue shortly before the election. And I practically fell out of my chair, Ted, when he said, I don't know how Kamala will govern. I'm voting for her. He's canvassing for her. But I don't know how she'll govern. And to my mind, that was stunning.
That's ridiculous.
That was stunning. That should have been, this is a guy immersed in politics. He makes you and I look like pikers when it comes to covering politics. And this guy didn't know how their candidate, the top of the Democratic ticket, the person who wanted to be president of the United States, he had no idea how she would govern as president. It's very fucked up. So to your point, yeah, no one is sitting back today going, boy, I wonder what she would have done. Now, if Trump does become the fascist that everyone says he is, yeah, then there probably will have. How did they how did he get elected over her?
Not him. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, we're seeing the transition take place. Trump hasn't really been talking a lot. He's been busy with
talking more than Biden. I think Biden's dead.
Biden's probably been dead for several years. But again, nobody's going to miss Biden, right?
No.
But yeah, basically we haven't had a president in years, and now that's painfully unavoidable for everybody. But Trump is basically the de facto president at this point already.
I know, he is.
And everybody's bending the knee, like Mark Zuckerberg, who canceled his Facebook account, is now like bending the knee. God, who was it who offered him, some other CEO offered him $1 million. Oh, it was Zuckerberg, offered him $1 million donation for his inauguration and stuff like that. So it's like everyone's like sucking his dick now. And I guess the thing is, what will the Trump administration look like? I mean, how seriously, there's so many questions, right? First of all, will people like RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard be confirmed?
Yes.
Will there be a lot more retribution type stuff, like the lawsuit against the Des Moines Register that just got filed? Will there be, is what's going to happen with Ukraine? What's going to happen with Israel? Syria, I suspect, will be his number one foreign policy headache for the foreseeable future, as the state, as it collapses and becomes a completely failed state. In part due to actually the Biden administration's policies. What's this going to look like? And is Doge real, or is it just like two dipshits fucking around?
It's two dipshits fucking around. This kind of thing has been tried so often, Ted. I mean, I can't tell you. Since I was a kid, I can remember each new administration coming in saying that they're going to go into the federal budget and really cut and get efficiencies, blah, 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 blah. And it never fucking happens. Or at least it's to a degree that's so nominal that
because they can't, right? I mean, you can't.
You can. I mean, you can you can Reagan it up. You can cut taxes by 33% and try to starve the beast.
Yeah, but how are you getting that through the Senate?
Well, you have, if Donald Trump says, perform fellatio on yourself, everyone, including the female members of the Republican Party, are going to do that.
Okay, but that's still that doesn't get you to 60 though.
Oh yeah, well, okay, it does. Well, it gets you to 52, or is that 52 or 55 now?
I think it's 54.
And there's some Democrats who are probably want to play ball and get stuff done. My sense is that, to your point, I think many of these nominations will pass. There's going to be something like they got Getz, which I love saying.
We all knew Gates was done, right? We knew that wasn't.
Well, his, and the report's coming out. They voted. I can't believe this. They voted secretly to release this report, Ted. Why does that have to be a secret vote to release a report? I don't know, but they're doing it.
Oh, you do know. You absolutely know.
Yeah, they don't want Trump to go, they're bad people. They got rid of my nominee. He was an excellent, the best nominee ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think many of them will pass. RFK, yeah. Gabbard, yeah. What's her name? The crazy lady from Arizona being the head of Voice of America.
Yeah, well, obviously, ironically, she's actually fairly qualified for that, right? Wasn't she a local broadcast lady?
Yeah, she had been for 30 years.
Right. So, she's from that field. I always like to look at, someone like, say, Pete Buttigieg, who was the governor of South Bend, Indiana, becoming the head of the mayor, becoming the head of the ginormous Department of Transportation, and being mayor of a city that not only had, I think, about 60 buses, but they were not under the mayor's control. They were under the control of a separate transportation authority in South Bend.
And to his credit, he did it well. He did a good job. He really did. From all accounts, every place I've ever heard of, he's done a terrific job. So,
well, although he kind of like slid in very slowly. I'm not sure about this job. I think I'm going to take the first 6 months off.
Yeah,
just to chill. And he didn't show up to work for 6 months. But then, he kind of got. Well, you know what it is. He had the new kids. The kids are screaming at home. Oh fuck! They need me at work. I gotta go. I'll be working late, honey. I'm not.
Yeah, sorry, man. I'll look at my wrist. I gotta,
stuff is gotta,
overpass in Dubuque. Yeah, so I think that's going to happen. I think this incoming administration he really is hitting the ground running much more so than he did in 2017.
Yeah, he seems much more serious.
Well, he knows what he's doing, as he said. And he in the press conference recently, if you cut through all the meandering and blathering, he knows what he's doing now. I mean, they've done it. So he's going to I think they're going to hit the road running. I think the first 100 days the Democrats are going to have whiplash. People who hate Trump are going to go bananas because that is frankly
it's the smart move, right? I mean, you're never, as every president learned, you're never going to have as much capital as when you first come in. You might as well go gangbusters. You're never going to get. I mean, Joe Biden, the few things that he got done in his first year.
Yeah.
That's Obama, same thing. It's always like that. Reagan, he got more done in his first year than all 8 years. I don't even know why they want a second term for the most part, but this is kind of like a second term that's not a second term. Actually, let's go back to Grover Cleveland, 1892. His second term was, he pulled the same trick, right? He ran, he lost, he came back, and served a second term. That term was pretty much destroyed by a giant economic downturn in the form of the Panic of 1893. What was how much of a lame duck was Cleveland really considered when he came back to take the inaugural oath, I guess, in March of 1893?
Well, they didn't have the 22nd Amendment, so he could have run again, and there was talk.
Oh, right.
There was talk of nominating him again in 96. Don't forget. I mean, he really was.
Okay.
And then the golden-throated boy orator of the plains, William Jennings Bryan, gave his Cross of Gold speech, which apparently.
Do you want to hear something depressing about William Jennings Bryan? The other day on Jeopardy, on Final Jeopardy, the question was, please name a person who ran as a major party nominee for president 3 times, and one of their running mates was John Kern.
Oh,
none of the 3 people got it right.
Oh my God, that's okay. Because you and I collect political memorabilia, and we know
but
exactly.
Also, he's
I can draw you a
famous dude, youngest man ever to be nominated for president. The Scopes monkey trial. I mean,
Yeah.
what the fuck? The country doesn't know who William Jennings Bryan is anymore.
You shall not crucify the working man upon a cross of gold. Yeah, it's our conversations can
Anyway,
really go.
I digress. I digress too. Go ahead. So McKinley didn't run. Bryan took that Democratic nomination.
He
kind
did,
of by
but don't
surprise.
forget, Grover Cleveland, unbeknownst to anybody, this is a different era, obviously, had major cancer surgery. He had half his jaw removed and replaced with vulcanized rubber. I'm sorry, just anything. Anytime you say vulcanized rubber and a body part replaced with
what you'd really say vulcanized rubber.
I mean, could you imagine what that surgery? Oh my God.
Well, with the top technology of the 1890s, it must have been awesome.
Yes, bite down on the stick. Oh wait, you can't because we're removing half your jaw. He had oral cancer, and so they removed.
Did he chew tobacco? Is that why?
Back in the day, they did a lot of snuff. They put it in your gum, and they had terrible teeth. This is my gripe about time travel. This all ties together, Ted, I swear. But time travel movies always piss me off because someone from my era goes back to the 1890s. And they're just walking around going, wow, that's weird. There's hardly any telephones. There's no electricity. Wow. No, the number one thing you would notice is the smell. People did not bathe, and more to the point,
horse shit everywhere.
Well, horse shit everywhere. And people used chaw. They used dip, which is what they put, you saw the commercials, just the pinch.
People had people had fucking boils all over their bodies and shit. Yeah.
The thing is, the tobacco would rot the gums, which would rot the teeth, which would make your breath be able to knock a horse unconscious. It would be so bad. So they never mentioned that, but I'm guessing that may have been why he had that. I mean, it's very similar to what killed Grant. But Grant smoked. So funny. During the war, he smoked 20 cigars a day. 20, like that's normal size, like you and I would consider.
That's like a box, isn't it?
When he became president, he swore to his wife that he'd cut back to 10.
Yeah. Temperance. All things in moderation, Scott.
FDR did the same thing. Don't forget, he cut back his smoking to only a pack and a half a day.
Question. All right, so let's go back to Grover. So was he considered a lame duck when he came in 1893? I mean, you can see where I'm going with this.
No, because they didn't have term limits. He could have run.
But Donald Trump doesn't seem to be considered a lame duck.
Well,
I mean, right now.
Because
is that about to change?
He could ignore the 22nd Amendment. He could don't forget, he has a very pliable, sympathetic Supreme Court who could say that the 22nd Amendment does not stipify. It says 2 consecutive terms.
It doesn't say that, though.
I know that, but he could. Dude, there's a lot of things that aren't said that all of a sudden lawyers say are said.
He's fucking old as shit. I mean, I don't see him running. He'll be the oldest man ever to serve as president. He beats Biden. So,
and he's just as addled. I mean, it's just going to be worse.
He's just addled in a different way.
Yeah.
So, all right.
So is he coming in as a lame duck? I don't.
I mean, he's going to do a lot of shit with executive orders, obviously. But can he get anything through Congress? Anything meaningful?
Oh yeah.
Through the Senate, through the U.S. Senate.
Yes. Well, yeah, we have a Republican Senate, so yeah, of course.
But he doesn't have the 60 votes.
No, but that's just if you have. That's, for instance, like a constitutional amendment. That's some laws it's strictly majority, and he can get those passed. Absolutely. Ted, I'm going to call. Can we call timeout, please?
Yeah.
Pause.
Hold on, I'm going to put us on pause.
And another point I want to make, Ted, is if you've looked at the stock market for the first time since the Carter administration has not had 9 losing days in a row. That is very, very bad. And it doesn't bode well for an incoming Trump administration. Now, his economic advisor is coming in, a lot of pro-business people, but it's hard to be pro-business when the economy's in a free fall. This is not going to be, I predict, a successful. It'll be very much a Grover Cleveland second term. How's that?
Well, I hope not. I mean, that was a disaster.
Well, it was a depression. They called it the depression before there was the depression.
Right. So, yeah. And that's because, of course, falling prices is what the reference is there. Okay, so I guess the question is, and by the way, even as you just said that, I got a news alert talking about the close of the market here in New York. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 1,100 points today on the news that the Federal Reserve Bank has said that they do not plan to cut interest rates as much as previously anticipated next year.
Right, but that's on the heels of a cut. So that's really kind of a curious move, isn't it? I mean, it's impossible to tell with these guys, but it turns out that, the Fed did indeed cut rates again. They said they're not going to do it anymore. So they'll take it down to 6%, would you say? Now, okay, I'm going to sound like the old fart that I am, Ted. When I bought my first house, our interest rate was 10%, and we bought points.
Right.
When did you buy your first house?
97.
Okay, and what was the interest rate?
6.25.
Okay. I mean, 6% seems to me to be a reasonable percentage, an interest rate percentage, because it also means that when you have a bank account, you're going to make 3-4% interest on your savings. I mean, it's not going to change your life, but it means to make some money versus what was happening, a few years ago where they had zero.
Right. Yeah, there was actually a period during which banks were literally charging interest for deposits over $50 million because just to park your money, you had to pay them a fee.
Bankers and fees.
They do like their fees. It's true.
My God, that whole industry is built on him. And it's so going forward politically, is it going to be smooth sailing? Yeah. Trump is going to get everything he wants. Legislative.
Right. And so what is that going to, I mean, how is that going to change the complexion of the country? Like, what is Trumpism going to, we know the effect. If you name a president, I can sort of tell you some of the major effects that he had. At 2 to 4 years from now, when we look back, what are the big Trump accomplishments, changes, damage, however you want to look at it? What's it all going to look like?
Well, I think it will be damaging, and I hope you're sitting down, Ted.
I am,
because I think extending the Trump tax cuts is a mistake. It drives, and he's going to push more tax cuts, but they're not going to be tax cuts for schmucks
not
like
for you and me. No.
It's going to be for the 1%, the 2%, and it's going to be and it's going to drive the deficit up faster. If we are indeed sliding into some bad economic waters, I think you're going to see this administration do what it had no problem doing during COVID, the build up to COVID, and that's spend money that it didn't have. They don't care. Deficit spending is no longer a concern of anybody except for, apparently assholes like me.
Dick Cheney said deficits don't matter.
Yeah. And I think there's a Republican thought that absolutely is the truth. Donald Trump spent more and the deficit went up higher and faster under his auspices than almost any other president by far. I mean, he's just going to spend money left and right. You're going to see, Donald Trump elementary schools going up all over the place. You're going to see Donald Trump overpasses. You're going to see Donald Trump's, arena and casinos going up all over the place. They're going to spend money like crazy, especially if the economy, the signs right now are deeply disturbing. The stock market's not everything, but it's a lot. And losing.
What about the Democratic Party? Are they going to put up any resistance?
I'm sorry, who? The what?
Right.
That's really my take. Is that
what about popular uprising, like another Occupy Wall Street or something like that?
I think if you see if you see the economy go tits up like it could, it would be facilitated by massive deficit spending, even with that influx of cash you're not going. It's not going to be able to save the downfall. It's just the economy is too big to be saved from a depression type catastrophe. So, what does that mean? I mean, what does that mean economically? What does that mean to us? I mean, it means that the Democratic Party, yes, the populists, not the populists, but the progressives could finally have their day. Because they get elected when things look really bad. I mean, I'm looking at 1932, 1964, less so. When there's really bad economics, I mean, 1980 was kind of an opposite, wasn't it? When you had the economy with stagflation, Jimmy Carter seeming to be clueless as to what to do with it, and Ronald Reagan gets elected overwhelmingly. We have eras where, progressives step forward and actually make great gains. This could be an opening for progressives in America, but it's going to come with a lot of pain first. And
okay. Well, I think we should probably leave that and that very grim,
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Very grim note where we can just kill ourselves.
Yeah, my understanding is Christmas spending is not as vigorous as it has been in the past. So that will be another indicator. I think inflation and people's consumer confidence has plummeted, which means they don't spend money.
So bleak, so fun. All right. Well, all right. Yeah. Well, with that, yeah, I mean, it's very strange. It's very waiting for Godot right now, right? I mean, Democrats are so dispirited. I mean, it's funny, right? I mean, when in warfare, sometimes the defeated side is just broken. Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, they're like, okay, we fucking lost. We're fucked. We know it. We accept it. Then there's the side that's defeated. It's like, yeah, fuck you. We're fighting and we don't care. You defeated us. Iraq, Saddam Hussein. We're just going to go head to the hills. We're going to come back and kill your ass as much as we can.
The South.
The South. The Democratic Party is in that first model, right? I mean, they really don't seem to feel like there's no gumption left, right? They're not.
Well, I challenge you and ask you, where's the silver lining, Ted? If you have Democratic friends, where's the silver lining in all this?
Well, they have the Supreme Court. No.
They have the House. Bader Ginsburg held on until she died.
They still have the Senate. No. Well, they still have the majority of the state houses. Oh, right. Not really. Well, they have MSNBC. They have George Scarborough and Nika Brzezinski.
Which is for sale. Which, by the way, could you imagine if like an Elon Musk decides to buy MSNBC? Yeah,
he could.
Which could happen.
He might do that. He's enough of a troll to do that. Although what a waste of money. But so is buying Twitter/X. All right. So we're going to play the.
Before we tighten these up, I do want to ask you what you think. I mean, where's the Democratic Party go from here? Because they're having a lot of navel gazing. I hear a lot of them saying, we didn't lose by that much. Yeah, you did against Donald fucking Trump. That's what you lost against. You lost against a child. That's what you lost against. What do? I mean, I know what you would suggest, I think.
Well, look, I think here's the thing. My grand theory of American electoral politics, bourgeois electoral bullshit, as the graffiti in Harlem calls it, is basically that there is no center anymore, and that everything is a base play. The Republicans have been winning that way. They've been expanding their base. Donald Trump's, he contributed a lot to the art of campaigning. But the big thing he discovered was that you can get people to vote who never ever vote at all. You can get them to come and vote for you if you speak to them. And that's how he expanded. MAGA world he didn't convert the Republican Party. He took it over from the outside using these previous non-voters, right? Well, Democrats should learn from that. They've been chasing the elusive anti-Trump Republicans, the moderate Republicans, the centrist Republicans, blah, blah, blah. Hillary Clinton tried this. It didn't work then. To Biden's credit, Biden shored up his base. He made enough promises in terms of having a seat at the table and passing some progressive legislation that he was able to get progressives to come and vote for him in 2020. That's why he won. Kamala went back to the Hillary model and lost. So it's pretty clear to me that a base strategy is going to win. Between 54 and 70% of the Democratic base is progressive. So get those people to vote. Don't get those 11 million people to sit home. So move to the left. The Democratic Party is going to be accused by the Republicans of being socialist and communist anyway. So why not own it and get like those socialists and communists to come and vote for you?
Yeah.
There's a way to do this without festooning the White House with red and yellow hammer and sickle bunting. As much as I would love that, but you can move to the left. We need a much higher minimum wage. We need stuff. This is stuff that would appeal to a lot of Trumpies too. Much higher minimum wage, easier to unionize, more workers' rights. Go after employers who are violating the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act of 1936, not giving coffee breaks, ripping people off, not paying overtime over 40 hours, and so on. Really focus on these bread and butter issues. Try to make college affordable or free. Yes. Healthcare. I mean, the reaction to the killing of United CEO, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson shows that Americans are desperate for an improvement in the healthcare system. Like, Trump kicked that can down the road. He didn't care, but this is an opportunity for the party that decides to do something about it. Democrats could do that. They got to listen to Bernie, really, truly. But they're not gonna. But that's what they should do if they want to win.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I know that's, like I said, sounds weird coming from a Republican, or a former Republican, recovering Republican, whatever you want to call me. But you're absolutely right. I think that's how they win. All right. And with that, as always, Scott, it's been a pleasure. And we're playing the outro. Wrong one. Although that's Ted's doesn't have music. Where can we see you, Ted? We can see you on TMI America. We can see you at the TMI. Just go to YouTube and search for TMI Show, and there's all the stuff. And here's the Go Comics and Berkeley City, Go Comics Scott Stantis, Merconish, just all that stuff. DMZ America, the podcast. Bye all. Peace.